Good morning. Today we are going to cover section 1.3, solving multi-step equations. So you should have your cards. So let's go through the process of setting up your notebook. You should have your card ready. You should also have your pencil, your red pen, your highlighter, and your ruler, and a glue stick as well. So let's go through and setting up your notebook. So remember that we are doing a margin on the left hand side. You should have 6 spaces, 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, and that's going to give you some space for you to make notes to yourself, reminders that you need to remember for your test. And the section today is 1.3, solving multi-step equations. Your essential question for today is, how do we use multi-step equations to solve real-life problems? And that'll be the last example. But in order to be able to get there, we need to be able to continue to learn more challenging problems. So you should have your card. Remember that you want to be able to use a glue stick to be able to glue your card, and you want to make sure that you have it all the way through. Your glue stick should make sure that you get to the corners. You can do this, just don't do it in your notebook, so otherwise it gets stuck, and then you won't be able to open it again. So I should just do it here. Then I center it, and that kind of helps you guys organize your notebook. It looks a little nicer, easier to read. And that is section 1.3. So let's go through example number 1. Well, let's go through the cutoff first, right? To solve a multi-step equation, we need to simplify each side of the equation first, if necessary. Then we're going to use the inverse operation to isolate the variable. Do you remember what isolate means? Isolate means to live by itself. So therefore, I'm going to be living by itself the variable, the x, the y, the a, the b. In the inverse, we're always going to be the opposite. If it's adding, we're going to subtract. If it's multiplying, we're going to divide. So therefore, example number 1. Solve, then check your answer. And we have 5x plus 6x minus 8 equals 2x plus 19. And once again, notice that it looks very similar to the previous problems, right? So a lot of the things that we're going to do today will just maybe be one extra step. So before I start to move things left and right, what should be the first thing that I should do? Let's go and draw the line all the way to the middle. And before I move things left and right, what should I combine on the left? So you should be able to notice that on the left I can combine the 5x and the 6x. And that gives me, same sign, you add, gives me 11x minus 8 equals, and everything else comes down. We have 2x plus 19. And now the problem that we have is that we have x's on the left and x's on the right. So I want to combine them, but in order to combine them, I need to have them on the same side. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and move my 2x is a positive 2x. I'm going to move it to the left. We can say negative 2x. Let me just place it in there. Negative 2x. Now I'm going to draw the line. 11x minus 2x will give me 9x. Minus 8 equals 19 comes down. Now I need to leave the x by itself, so therefore I need to get rid of the 9 and the negative 8. So go and pause it, see what you get, solve for x, and then we can compare our answers. Got it? So now move the 8 to the right. We can say positive 8. Get rid of the 8 first. That gives me 9x will be equal to 27. And the last step will be to divide by 9. Divide by 9. Divide by 9. So therefore that gives me x equals 3. 27 divided by 9 will be 3. So we think that's the answer. But how can I double check? Correct. We can check your answer by plugging it back in. So therefore, let's go and write down check. I'm going to write down my original equation. It has to be the one that you started with. And now I can plug in the value of x. The value of x is 3, so I'm going to replace this x with a 3. I'm going to replace this x with a 3, and I'm going to replace that x with a 3 as well. So therefore, let's go and set it up first. 5x plus 6x minus 8 equals 2x plus 19. But instead of the x, I'm going to replace it with a 3. And now we can simplify. Oh, I'm missing one more 3. And now we can simplify. I'm going to simplify the left, and then I'm going to simplify the right, and they should be equal to each other if that is correct. So that gives me 15 plus 18 minus 8 plus 6 plus 19. So multiply, multiply, multiply. Combine the numbers on the left, combine the numbers on the right. Notice that we still have two sides. But now we're not moving things left and right. We're just going to simplify on the left, simplify on the right. And let's see. I'm going to add those two numbers. What's 15 plus 18? 33. Minus 8. 33 minus 20 minus 8 will be 25. 6 plus 19 will be 25. So therefore, now that is solved for, we know that that made the equation true. So therefore, 3 is the correct answer. So very similar to what we were doing before. Example number 2. But now we are going to have equations that are a little bit more challenging, and you can tell me why. We'll talk about why are they a little more challenging. Solve. We have A. 15 equals 5 plus 4 2d minus 3. B. 2 times 3x minus 5 equals 2x plus 10. And now we're just going to solve each one. We're going to solve the ones on the left, solve the ones on the right, and see what you get. So solve each one. So let's go. Draw the line. So what do you think this one's a little more challenging than the ones above? What's the difference? Correct. The parentheses, right? So every time, or I would say most of the time that you have parentheses, what property should we use? What is this property? You remember the name. Correct. It's the distributive property. So therefore, we're going to distribute the positive 4 to both. And notice that I circle the positive 4, so I do need you guys to circle the positive 4 as well. So therefore, the 15 comes down, equals 5. 4 plus 2d will give me positive 8d. 4 times negative 3 will give me negative 12. And now we have a problem just like we had on example number 1, the ones that we saw in the last lesson. What should I do next? Correct. I can combine like terms on the right hand side. I'm going to circle the ones I can combine. So therefore that gives me 15 equals. I want to make sure that I write down the AD first, because you want to be able to write the variables first. And 5 minus 12 will give me negative 7. And now I can just move. What should I move to the left? Well, I can move my negative 8 to the left, but in this case I want to build my AD to the left. But I want to be able to leave the d by itself. So I'm going to leave the d on the right. We'll make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to move my negative 7 to the left. You can say positive 7. Go and draw the line. That gives you 22 equals 8d. And the next step is to divide by 8. So therefore d equals, what's 22 divided by 8? So 8 doesn't go into 22 evenly, right? If it was 24, it'll be 3 times. But if it's 22, no. So let's go and reduce the fraction first before we change it to a mixed fraction. So let's go and divide. What number divides 8 and 22? We can divide by 2. So divide by 2 gives me 11. Divide by 2 gives me 4. And that is a mixed fraction. Oh, sorry, an improper fraction. So I need to change it to a mixed fraction. Let me go and change my d here. And 4 goes into 11 how many times? 2. I'll place my denominator still the same. 2 times 4 is 8. How many more to get to 11? 3 more. So 2 and 3/4. Anybody knows what that is as a decimal? Correct, 2.75. So you got this? Let's go and draw the line. I'm going to, what should be my next step? Well, I noticed I have parentheses up there, right? So therefore, since I have parentheses, I need to use which property? Distributive property. I'm going to distribute my 2. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 3x will give me 6x. 2 times negative 5 will be negative 10. X plus 10. And now I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to move my x's to the left. And in this case, it's only 1x. When I move it to the left, it's a positive, we can say negative x. 6x minus 1x gives me 5x minus 10 equals 10. And now I can solve. Move my 10 to the right, we can say positive 10. Remember, whenever you move things left or right, you have to remember to change the sign. That's a negative, becomes a positive. Draw the line. And now I have 5x equals 10 plus 10 will give me 20. And the last step will be to divide by 5. So therefore, x equals 4. Let's try C and D. So this will be 5 times a plus 1 minus a equals to 3. And this will be negative 2 x minus 3 is equal to negative 6x plus 2. So go and solve the first one. Draw the line. See what you get, and then we can compare our answers. Go and pause it. You got it? Let's see. What should be my first step? Correct. I should use my distributive property to each one. Notice that it only goes into what's inside the parentheses, not the negative a. So now I have 5 times a will be 5a. 5 times 1 will give me positive 5 minus a equals to 3. What should be my next step? Correct. Combine like terms. I can combine the 5a and the negative a becomes 5a minus 1 gives me 4a plus 5. And now we have a simple two-step equation, just like we did on 1.1. So now, to leave the a by itself, I need to get rid of the 5 and the 4. Which should I get rid of first? The 5. Move it to the right, we can say negative 5. That gives me 4a equals 3 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. And now we can divide by 4. That 4's cancel, so therefore a equals. What's 2 divided by 4? What's negative 2 divided by 4? So negative divided by positive is a negative. 2 divided by 4, well, 4 is a bigger number, it's on the denominator. So therefore I know it's going to be less than 1. So I'm just going to reduce it. I'm going to divide by 2, gives me 1. I'm going to divide by 2, gives me 4. So it'll be negative 1 half. Be careful. When the bigger number is on the denominator, we know that has to be less than 1. Example number letter D. Let's go and use the distributive property. And before I do that, what should I do first actually? I should draw the line. So use the distributive property to multiply this out. And we have negative 2 times x will give me negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3 will give me positive 6. So be careful when you multiply a negative times a negative, we are using your triangle. So we have a negative times a negative becomes a positive 6. And now we have negative 6x plus 2. And now I can solve my equation. See what you get. Go and pause it, and then we can check our answers. You got it? So now I'm going to move my negative 6x to the left. We can say positive 6x. I'm going to draw the line. That gives me positive 4x plus 6 equals to 2. Now we have a two-step equation. I need to get rid of the 4 and the 6. What should I get rid of first? The 6. Move the 6 to the right. We can say negative 6. That gives me 4x equals 2 divided by negative 6 will be negative 4. And the last step is to divide by 4. Divide by 4 gives me x is equal to negative 4. Excellent. Questions? Well, email me if you have questions. Let's go to example number 3. Let's go and make our line. Let's make our 2, 4, 6. Let's make our margin. And that'll be example number 3. Solve. We're just going to solve. We're not going to check our answers. We can if you want. So let's go to a little more challenging problem. We have 1/2 x, 1/2 times 4x. So we're going to fix it. Minus 10 is equal to negative 4x plus 4. And that'll be letter A. So notice that it's the same thing. That what's the only difference? Correct. The only difference is that we have the 1/2 outside the parentheses. But when you have encountered problems like this, it should work out pretty nicely. And you guys remember to multiply fractions. You actually learned it back in 6th grade. Then you review in 7th grade, 8th grade. So by now, you should be pretty good with your fractions. So every time we have a parenthesis, I should use my distributive property, and I'm going to multiply each one. Now, when you multiply a fraction by a whole number, I need to also make this one a fraction. So how can I achieve that? Correct. Just place it over 1. And same thing with the 10, place it over 1. And now we can multiply 1 times 4x gives me a 4x. 2 times 1 will give me a 2. That will simplify nicely to 2x. So that should simplify nicely on every single problem that I give you. 1/2 times negative 10. 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. 2 times 1 will give me 2. And negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. I'm just going to bring this down. And now I can solve the equation. Now we have x's on both sides, so I'm going to move my x's to the left. My negative 4x gets moved to the left. It's a negative, we can say positive 4x. That gives me 6x minus 5 equals 4. And now we have a two-step equation. So I need to get rid of the 6 and the 5 and the negative 5. Which one should I get rid of first? Correct. I should get rid of the negative 5, move it to the right, we can say positive 5. That gives me 6x will be equal to 9. And one last step, which is to divide by 6. Divide by 6, divide by 6. So therefore x equals 9 divided by 6. 6 goes into 9, well, not evenly, correct? So therefore, I can reduce it. So I want to reduce it by 3. Divide by 3 gives me 3. Divide by 3 gives me 2. And that's an improper fraction. So let's go and change it to a mixed fraction. Since the numerator is a bigger number, we know that's bigger than 1. 2 goes into 3 one time. My denominator stays the same. 1 times 2 is 2. It gives me 1. Or 1.5 as well. So let's try letter B. The last equation, then we'll do one more problem, and then we'll be done with the notes. We have 2 over 3, 9n minus 6 is equal to negative 28. So try this example. See if you can figure out the first step. Just go and follow the same instructions as the previous one. Go and pause it. You got it? Okay, let's solve it. I'm going to go and draw the line. And the first thing that I notice is that I have parentheses. So I should use my distributive property. I'm going to go and circle. When you use the distributive property in my class, you need to circle and distribute each one. Now I'm multiplying a fraction by a whole number. So I'm going to go and place this under 1. Each one. And now I'm going to multiply. When you multiply the numerators and the denominators. So 2 times 9n will give me 18n. 3 times 1 will give me 3. That gives me 6n. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. 3 times 1 will give me 3. And negative 12 divided by 3 will give me negative 4. So that should always simplify nicely on the problems that we give you. Now there are going to be other problems in Algebra 2 that you're going to have to just deal with the fractions throughout. And now I'm going to go and bring the negative 28 down. And I can solve. Two-step equation, right? So what should I get rid of first? The 6 or the negative 4? Correct, the negative 4. Move it to the right, we can say positive 4. That gives me 6n equals negative 28 divided by 4 will be negative 24. And divide by 6 on both sides. So therefore my 6 cancels. N equals negative 24 divided by 6 will give me negative 4. Excellent. Questions? So the last example should be look very familiar because we did something very similar on the last set of notes. So I kind of want to review this and use a different formula now that we have the distributive property. Example number 4. Find the length of the longest side if the rectangle has a perimeter of 32 and the length of its sides is as follows. And let's go and draw a rectangle. Once again, we're going to do a 3 and just a little longer on the side. So I'm going to do 2, 4, 6, 8. That looks like a good sized triangle or rectangle. And they tell you that the length of this side is 3x minus 5. And the length of this side is x plus 1. So what we're looking for? So something that you need to keep in mind is what we're looking for. We need to find the length of the longest side. But they also tell you, and use your highlighter, that the perimeter is 32. So therefore, perimeter. Do you guys remember your formula for the perimeter? Correct. The perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. But the perimeter tells me that that's 32. So I'm going to replace the P with a 32. 2 times the length. And in this case, the length is 3x plus 5. So I'm just doing a quick substitution, correct? Or 3x minus 5. Plus 2 times the width, which is x plus 1. And let's just be careful that that is not part of the problem, right? So let me just place a little sticky note in there. That is not the equation. Well, now we have that equation to solve. So see if you can solve it. So it should give you a nice number. Go and try it, pause it, and then we can check your answer afterwards. Got it? So now I have 32 equals, that gives me 6x. I'm going to circle my 2, and I'm going to use my distributive property. And then I'm going to distribute the other positive 2. But notice that when I circle it, I do need to make sure that you guys circle not just the 2, but also the positive, because the positive belongs to the 2. So that gives me 6x. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 2 times x will give me positive 2x. And 2 times 1 is positive 2. Combine like terms. So if I'm trying to solve it, I notice that on the right hand side, there are several things I can combine, right? Which ones can I combine? I can combine the 6x and the positive 2. So 32, that gives me 8x. But I also can combine the negative 10 and the positive 2. So it gives me a negative 8. And now I can solve it. I can move my x's to the left, but in this case it'll be easier to move the 8. Move the negative 8 to the right, becomes a positive 8. That gives me a 40 equals to 8x. Divide by 8. Divide by 8. The 8's cancelled, so therefore, what's 40 divided by 8? Which is 5. So the question is, are we done? If they were asking for the value of x, then yeah, we'll be done by now. But in this case, they're asking for the longest side. The longest side in this case is 3x minus 5. So let's go and write down longest side. will be 3x minus 5. But now that we know the value of x, we can plug it in, which will be 3x minus 5. Plugging in 5. That gives me 15 minus 5, which is 10. We can say the longest side is 10 units long, or just 10 units. We're just going to say 10 units. So that will conclude the lesson for today. Please email me if you have any questions, and then I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.